Hey everyone, and welcome to Inside the USA, where we like to take a deep dive into a single topic. And today,
Yeah.
we're going to be tackling the best and worst states for climate change
Okay.
right here in the U.S.
All right.
Now, yeah,
And just to be clear, right off the bat,
yeah,
we are not here to take sides on climate change.
yeah, no.
Just want to make that clear.
Yeah, we are not taking sides at all.
We're just here
Not
to
really.
explore
Yes.
the data.
The data.
Presented in a fascinating article from safehome.org.
Yes, a big shout out to safehome.org.
Yeah. They did a great job with this one.
They really did. It's a great article.
Yeah.
Called Really In-Depth.
Best and worst states for climate change.
Yes. And we'll be sure to link to the full article in the episode description.
You go.
And at the top of the comments section.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah.
I was really struck by how this Safe Home study really gets down to the nitty-gritty. They create a climate change risk index
Right.
to rank states.
Exactly.
But it's not just some abstract environmental ranking, is it?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
They have analyzed 5 key risk categories tied to climate change.
All right, so what are those?
So we got extreme heat,
Okay.
drought, wildfires,
All right.
coastal flooding,
Got it.
and inland flooding.
Okay, so all the flooding.
All the flooding, yeah.
Yeah.
And they've connected this to the percentage of people in each state
Okay.
who will be directly impacted by this.
Yes.
So
So this is about us.
if you're thinking
Yeah.
this is all about polar bears and melting ice caps,
Right.
think again.
Yeah.
This is about
This is hitting home.
your neighborhood,
Yeah.
your house,
Yeah.
your life.
This is about your family.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's unpack these categories a little bit.
All right.
Okay.
Let's get into it.
Extreme heat seems pretty straightforward.
Mm-hmm.
But what exactly does that encompass?
Well, it goes far beyond just those scorching summer days.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They factored in the projected number of dangerously hot days per year. Something they call cooling degree days.
Cooling degree days?
Which directly impacts energy consumption.
Of course.
And public health.
Yeah.
They also considered the length of mosquito season,
Yeah.
which is obviously linked to disease spread.
Right.
And even the number of days with poor air quality
Wow.
due to heat impacting respiratory health.
So extreme heat has this domino effect, touching everything from our wallets to our health.
Absolutely.
And I was really surprised to find out that all 48 states in the study are predicted to see an increase in these extreme heat risks.
Crazy, right?
Even states that are considered low risk overall, like Vermont, are going to feel the heat.
They're going to feel it.
Vermont was the only state in the study
Interesting.
where extreme heat was the only climate change impact they were significantly vulnerable to.
Wow. That's interesting.
Yeah, and speaking of domino effects,
Okay.
let's talk about drought,
All right.
which is the second most prevalent threat
Yeah.
identified.
Uh-huh.
A staggering 75% of states
That's a lot.
are expected to see an increase in drought severity.
That's crazy.
Drought seems like kind of a slow-burning issue,
Yeah.
but the economic consequences alone
Oh, yeah.
are massive.
Absolutely.
I'm thinking about agriculture,
Yeah.
water resources,
Uh-huh.
even property values
For sure.
in affected areas.
Yeah, you are spot on.
Yeah.
The study highlights how drought can trigger a chain reaction.
Okay.
Reduce agricultural yields can lead to higher food prices and economic hardship. Water scarcity can impact everything from drinking water to industrial activities.
Right.
And then there are the ecological implications.
Yeah.
Stressed ecosystems are more susceptible to wildfires and invasive species.
Yeah, it's a whole domino effect.
It is. It all kind of comes back around.
Yeah. And speaking of wildfires,
Okay.
we've all seen those horrifying images on the news lately.
Yeah, unfortunately.
So how did safehome.org quantify the wildfire risk?
Well, he cleverly looked at 2 main factors.
Yep.
The projected increase in days
Okay.
with a high wildfire risk,
Okay.
which they're calling high-risk burn days.
High-risk burn days. I like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the percentage of the population currently living in fire-prone areas.
Okay.
So this means they're not just looking at how climate change
Right.
might spark more fires, but
Right.
also how many people are in harm's way.
Right. So they're taking a very human-centric look at this.
They are.
Yeah.
It's a sobering reminder
Yes.
that this isn't just about the environment.
Right.
It's about human lives
Yeah.
and livelihoods.
In their homes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so let's dive into the 2 types of flooding.
All right.
They analyze
Yeah.
inland and coastal,
Yep.
Why the distinction?
Well, because they're often caused by different factors
Okay.
and have distinct consequences.
Okay.
Coastal flooding is primarily driven by sea level rise and storm surges, typically impacting coastal communities and infrastructure.
Makes sense.
Inland flooding, on the other hand, can be caused by heavy rainfall, overflowing rivers, and inadequate drainage systems. And its impact can be widespread, affecting communities far from the coast.
Right.
What's alarming is that in some states, a large portion of the population lives in the 100-year floodplain.
Wow.
Meaning they're at a significantly increased risk of experiencing flooding at least once in their lifetime.
That is really scary.
It is a scary thought.
Yeah. That statistic really hit home for me.
Yeah.
It makes you realize how many people are living with this hidden vulnerability.
Absolutely.
Often without even realizing it.
Right.
And with climate change intensifying rainfall patterns and causing sea levels to rise, that vulnerability is only going to increase.
Unfortunately, that's true.
So,
yeah, this is where understanding the specific risks facing your state becomes crucial. Because the impacts of climate change are far from uniform. Some states are facing a perfect storm of vulnerabilities, while others are relatively more resilient.
So let's get into some state-specific examples.
All right, sounds good.
Where do things look the bleakest, according to the Safe Home data?
Well, one state stood out as being particularly vulnerable to all 5 categories.
Oh, boy.
Florida?
Florida?
That's not really a surprise.
I know, right?
With its long coastline and history of hurricanes.
No. It seems like climate change is really going to hit them from all sides.
It sadly is true.
Yeah.
Florida's unique geography and climate make it a prime target for a whole host of climate change impacts.
Yeah.
We're talking increased hurricane intensity, rising sea levels, more extreme heat waves, prolonged droughts.
Oh, my goodness.
And even the potential for more wildfires due to drier conditions.
It's like everything.
It's a lot.
All at once.
That's a pretty daunting picture.
It really is.
Yeah.
But, you know, we should reiterate, this isn't meant to scare anyone.
No.
This is just about providing information.
Exactly.
So we could adapt and prepare.
We just want to give you the information so you can...
So you know what's coming.
Make the best decisions for you and your family.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Now let's look at a state on the other end of the spectrum.
Okay.
Safe Home identifies Vermont as having the lowest overall risk. While they are still projected to experience more extreme heat, their risk scores for the other 4 categories were remarkably low.
Yeah, they were pretty low.
This makes Vermont relatively resilient.
Yes.
Compared to many other states.
Very much so.
So what makes Vermont so different?
Well,
is it just luck of the draw geographically?
You know, it's a combination of factors. Vermont's inland location and higher elevation help to buffer it from some of the coastal impacts, like sea level rise and hurricanes.
Makes sense.
Its climate is generally cooler and wetter than many other parts of the U.S., making it less susceptible to drought and wildfires.
Yeah.
And its smaller population density means fewer people are concentrated in high-risk areas.
Oh, so they're kind of spread out a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
That makes sense.
A little bit more spread out.
It's fascinating how these geographic and demographic factors
it's interesting.
play such a crucial role.
It is.
So we've got Florida on one end of the spectrum, facing multiple threats, and Vermont on the other, relatively more resilient.
Yeah.
But what about the rest of the states?
Right.
Where does your state fall in this spectrum?
Well, we don't have time to go through all 50 states today.
Of course not.
But we encourage you to check out the full report from safehome.org.
Please do.
They have an interactive map that lets you explore the data for your own state.
Oh, that's awesome.
And see how it stacks up against the others.
I love that.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah. Check it.
It's a fantastic resource, and we'll make sure to include a link in the episode description.
You got it.
And at the top of the comment.
Absolutely.
But before you head over there, we want to dig a little deeper into these state-specific examples.
Let's do it.
And uncover some of the hidden consequences of climate change.
Yeah, because understanding the full scope of the problem is the first step towards finding solutions.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's go back to Florida for a moment.
Okay.
The Safe Home report paints a particularly grim picture for its agricultural industry.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Florida is known for its citrus fruits. And I know oranges are very sensitive to temperature changes and water availability.
Yeah, they are.
What does the report say about that specifically?
Well, they highlight that citrus greening disease,
Okay.
which is already a major problem in Florida,
Right.
is expected to worsen with climate change.
Okay.
Increased heat and drought stress weaken the trees, making them more susceptible to this devastating disease.
And that's a big deal.
It is a big deal.
For Florida.
Yeah. This could have a ripple effect on the entire citrus industry.
Wow.
Impacting jobs prices and even the availability of Florida orange juice on our breakfast tables.
Oh, no.
Oh, I know, right?
I love Florida orange juice.
Everybody does.
It's a reminder that climate change isn't just an abstract environmental issue.
No.
It's directly tied to our food security and the economy.
Exactly.
And it's not just agriculture.
No.
Florida's tourism industry, which is a major economic driver for the state,
Huge.
is also highly vulnerable to climate change.
Very much so.
Rising sea levels threaten beaches and coastal infrastructure. More intense hurricanes could lead to more frequent and costly disruptions to tourism activities.
Yeah, for sure.
Even things like warmer ocean temperatures could impact marine ecosystems, harming coral reefs and the fishing industry.
Yeah, so it really is a complex web of interconnected impacts.
Yeah, it sounds like Florida's really on the front lines of this battle.
They are.
Now let's shift gears and look at California.
Okay.
But they're facing a lot of the same risks as Florida, right?
California is definitely dealing with a multitude of climate change challenges.
Right.
They're also highly vulnerable to wildfires, drought, and extreme heat.
Right.
But one area where California stands out is its exposure to coastal flooding.
Right. California has a massive coastline.
Yeah.
With major cities like Los Angeles and San Francisco right on the water.
Exactly. And the Safe Home report estimates that California has billions of dollars worth of property and infrastructure at risk from sea level rise.
Wow.
Yeah. They highlight a particularly concerning statistic by 2100.
Okay.
Sea levels along the California coast are projected to rise by as much as 6 feet under a high emissions scenario.
6 feet?
6 feet.
That's a lot.
It is a lot.
What kind of impact would that have on coastal communities?
Well, it could be devastating.
Yeah.
We're talking about potential inundation of low-lying areas.
Okay.
Increased erosion damage to critical infrastructure like roads and power plants.
Right.
And even forced displacement of residents.
Wow.
The report specifically mentions that iconic landmarks like the Santa Monica Pier
Oh, wow.
and parts of the San Francisco Bay Area
Oh, my goodness.
could be underwater by the end of the century.
I can't even imagine.
Yeah.
Those are some of the most iconic images of California.
Yeah.
To imagine them being swallowed by the sea is just heartbreaking.
It's hard to think about.
But I guess it also underscores the urgency of addressing this issue, doesn't it?
Absolutely. These projections aren't meant to be doomsday predictions.
Right.
But rather a call to action.
Yes.
The sooner we start taking steps to mitigate climate change and adapt to its unavoidable impacts, the better chance we have of avoiding the worst case scenarios.
Right. And, before we move on, I want to touch on something we briefly mentioned earlier. Right. The impact of climate change on public health.
Right.
It seems like all of these risks we've been discussing, extreme heat drought, wildfires, flooding, they all have the potential to directly impact people's health.
You're right. There's a very real human cost to climate change.
Right.
That often gets overlooked. The Safe Home report touches on this.
Okay.
Emphasizing that rising temperatures can lead to an increase in heat-related illnesses, especially among vulnerable populations like the elderly and those with pre-existing health conditions.
Of course.
They also point out that drought can lead to water contamination,
right,
increasing the risk of waterborne diseases.
Oh, wow.
And wildfires, as we all know, release harmful pollutants into the air.
Yeah.
Impacting respiratory health and exacerbating conditions like asthma.
It's like this vicious cycle. The climate change creates these hazards, which then have cascading effects on our health and well-being.
Exactly.
And as we've seen with the COVID-19 pandemic, our health systems can be quickly overwhelmed when faced with these kinds of widespread challenges.
For sure. And this is where the concept of climate justice comes into play. Because climate change doesn't impact everyone equally.
Right.
Low-income communities, communities of color and indigenous populations often bear a disproportionate burden of the impacts.
Yes.
Both in terms of exposure to hazards and their capacity to cope with the consequences.
It's a really critical point. We can't talk about climate change without acknowledging the social and economic inequities that are woven into this issue.
It's all connected.
And it reminds us that solutions need to be equitable and inclusive,
Absolutely.
ensuring that everyone has the resources and support they need to adapt and thrive in a changing climate.
Couldn't have said it better myself. That's a crucial message to keep in mind as we move forward.
Okay.
Because ultimately, addressing climate change is not just about protecting the environment. It's
Yeah.
about protecting people and creating a more just and sustainable future for everyone.
Absolutely. So it's clear that climate change presents a really complex web of challenges.
Yeah.
From economic impacts to public health concerns,
Right.
and even social inequities. But, this deep dive isn't meant to leave us feeling overwhelmed or hopeless.
No, not at all.
It's about empowerment through knowledge.
Exactly. So understanding the risks is the first step towards finding solutions.
Okay.
And the good news is there are things we can do, both individually and collectively, to mitigate climate change and adapt to its unavoidable impacts.
So let's talk about solutions.
Okay.
What are some of the key strategies for mitigating climate change?
Yeah.
Especially here in the U.S.
Well, the Safe Home Report doesn't delve deeply into policy recommendations.
Okay.
But it's clear that transitioning to a cleaner energy system is paramount.
Okay, how do we do that?
Well, this means investing in renewable energy sources like solar and wind power.
Okay.
Improving energy efficiency and phasing out fossil fuels.
Right.
There's also a growing focus on carbon capture and storage technologies, which could play a role in reducing greenhouse gas emissions from industrial processes and power plants.
So those are all important large-scale solutions.
Yeah.
But what about individual actions?
Yeah.
What can we do?
What can we do
in our everyday lives to make a difference?
Yeah. Well, individual actions might seem small.
Yeah.
But they can collectively have a significant impact. Reducing our carbon footprint through simple changes.
Okay, like what?
Like driving less.
Okay.
Using energy-efficient appliances. And reducing food waste can make a difference.
Okay.
And making conscious consumer choices.
Right.
By supporting businesses that prioritize sustainability can also send a powerful message to the market.
So it's really just about being mindful of our impact.
It is about being mindful.
Yeah. And I think it's also important to remember that we're not just consumers.
Right.
We're also citizens.
Yes.
So engaging in the political process, advocating for climate-friendly policies, and holding our elected officials accountable is crucial.
Absolutely, because ultimately, systemic change is needed.
Yes.
To address a problem as complex and interconnected as climate change.
Right.
Individual actions are important.
Yeah.
But they're only part of the solution.
Right.
We need strong policies, innovative technologies, and collective action to truly make a difference.
And that brings us back to the Safe Home Report.
Yes.
And its focus on state-specific data. Because understanding the unique risks facing our own communities can help us advocate for targeted solutions and hold our local leaders accountable.
It's about empowering ourselves with knowledge.
Yeah.
And using that knowledge to drive change.
Okay.
Whether it's advocating for better urban planning to reduce heat island effects, supporting investments in drought-resistant crops, or pushing for stricter building codes to withstand stronger storms.
Yeah.
We can all play a role in shaping a more resilient future.
So to wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with this thought.
Okay.
Knowledge is power.
Yeah.
But only if we use it.
Right?
Take what you've learned today. Explore the Safe Home Report to see how your state is impacted.
Yeah.
And then think about what you can do in your own life and in your community to make a difference.
We're all in this together.
Yes, we are.
The choices we make today will determine the kind of world we leave for future generations.
That's a really good point.
Let's choose wisely.
Yeah, let's choose wisely.
Yeah.
And before we sign off, just a reminder to check out the full safehome.org report.
Great report.
Which we've linked to in the episode description and at the top of the comments.
Absolutely.
It's a fantastic resource, and I encourage you to share it with your friends and family. And be sure to leave us a comment and let us know what you thought of this deep dive.
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you.
What stood out to you?
Yeah.
What questions do you still have?
Exactly.
We'd love to hear from you.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the best and worst states for climate change.
Thank you for being here.
Until next time.
Yeah.
Stay curious.
Stay curious.
Stay informed.
Stay informed.
And stay engaged.
And stay engaged. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.